Boom, we are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to the Life as a Chad YouTube channel. And I thank all of you for being here, wherever you may be. And of course, however you may be listening. Couple things. Number one, I am going to create a PayPal for the channel to provide a way for some of you to support the channel if you would like. So I will be dropping that soon. And realistically, I need to do it anyways. And it's a way to take care of this before the channel reaches the threshold of 1,000 subscribers and YouTube starts providing payment for my content. Until it hits 1,000 subs and a certain amount of watched hours, it is basically free content, especially for YouTube. That's kind of the agreement that you make. They provide the platform. You provide the content with the understanding that because they provide the platform, there is a breaking in period before they start funding you. Anyways, I just got back from the gym, and before I went, the interview that I recently did on the OrthoCast, this guy has a few other channels as well. You know, one, I think he would be okay with me naming. It's called Kyle. I'm not sure about the other one. I don't think it's a secret, but still, you know, I haven't asked him necessarily if it's okay to mention the other channels. So I just mentioned one of them. But I went on the OrthoCast. I was the second interview on the show. And that was my, and so I just wanted to talk about the interview, and I wanted to flesh out some of the comments that I made. And the reason that I was not as succinct as I would like to be is two things. Number one, it was the first time I have ever been interviewed, which provides its own challenges. And number two, you know, it's very easy to fall into the trap of towing the line and trying to stay within the line. And it's not that I lied in the interview, because I most certainly did not. I was absolutely honest with my answers, but I wasn't as succinct in some of my answers that I would like to be and that I'm capable of being. And the channel has gotten a bunch of new subscribers from that interview. So I wanted to, and from some of the recent videos I've done. So I wanted to flesh out some of my answers from the questions that were asked by Kyle in the interview. So, by the way, if you're not subscribed, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Support a play out. Takes 1.25 seconds. At the very least, like, comment, share. You know the drill. Without further ado, let's get into this. My back is totally messed up. I totally messed it up at the gym, but I'm going to power through this. So the first thing is how I got into orthodoxy. Now, I could make a video about this in and of itself, which I will. Okay. And I have mentioned this in previous videos in smaller doses. I have not dedicated a full video to, and I'm going to play some of the interview. I don't think Kyle would want me to play a ton of it, but I think he'll be okay if I play a little bit of the interview. So I'm just going to answer it flat out right now. So I was raised in, I would say, my grandparents are very religious. They have been my entire life. My grandmother, who was born in Spain, so I am Spaniard, a quarter Spaniard. She originally was Catholic. She came to America and, well, she converted to the dominant religion in America, which is Protestantism. Now, she wouldn't call it that, and she doesn't view it as that, which is not a surprise. I mean, a lot of Protestants don't view uh, their the church they go to, the faith that they believe in, they don't view it as separate. They view it as, well, they're just reading the Bible and they're just interpreting it. And because of that, therefore, this is what they are, which means that they believe that they are interpreting the Bible 100% correctly. Therefore, what they are is the endpoint to interpreting it perfectly, but they don't see it in the confines of, well, I'm Protestant, he's Orthodox, this and this. The only, and my grandpa, he was not raised Christian, not atheist, but not Christian. He did go to church occasionally growing up, but he didn't start going to church until he was married to my grandmother. And that is when he was saved, if you were to ask him. And my dad, who, went to Christian schools, went to Christian universities, um, he, I, he is not a religious man. Um, Neither is my mom. But with that being said, both of them are do have the background of being Christians, and would say to this day that they believe in God, but they don't go to church and they are not religious. So that is kind of my background. And I say that to say that I had zero exposure to Orthodoxy, um, until I was in middle school. The first Orthodox person I ever met was my sixth grade English teacher, who was a Greek Orthodox. She was Greek. I mean, she was like 75 or 100% Greek. But even then, I didn't really understand, and it wasn't really a conscious understanding that she was Orthodox and what that meant. Um, so I really, even past college, I really thought that I didn't view it in terms of the Great Schism. Okay, I didn't view it in terms of evangelical, Baptist, or excuse me, uh, uh, Protestant, Orthodox, and Catholicism. I didn't view it in that way. I viewed it as, you are evangelical, you're Baptist, you're Lutheran, you're Mormon, or you are Catholic. Those were the main sectors that I thought existed. I Orthodox wasn't even in the forefront of my mind as being one of the things. And as I said, I didn't view it in terms of the Great Schism, which is Catholicism, Orthodoxy, and Protestantism, which would be the three main things. I had more exposure to Mormonism than I did to Orthodoxy growing up. Okay. So there's that. And I've said this many times. The main, so Kyle asked me in the interview what basically turned me to or towards orthodoxy, and the answer is simple. I mean, um I can't remember how I came across Jay Dyer. I think I came across him as a in a political debate, in a non-religious theological debate, and I thought he was brilliant. I thought he was very, very intelligent. And as I watched him more, obviously I received more understanding with regards to orthodoxy. And then I took it a step further and started listening to his and other Orthodox individuals' critiques of Protestantism and Catholicism, and Islam, and all of that. But I've never considered being Islam or Mormon or anything like that. So that's how I got into Orthodoxy. And Kyle asked me, you know, if there was like some great awakening, I mean, here's the deal. And this is what I wish I would have said in the interview. Even though my family is Protestant, and I think they're wrong about that, which I'll come back to as well, because there's a few things that need to be answered with that as well. Even though I think they're wrong with that, the one thing that I am very lucky to have is their push towards truth. That truth matters. Being good and trying to be a good man and be righteous and search for the truth. Those are all good things. And so because of that, there wasn't like some great, like I said, awakening or anything like that. It was just, I basically gravitated towards orthodoxy because I searched for truth. And the arguments that Jay Dyer and others made were excellent. Their critiques were excellent. I had an open mind. And I do want to pin that up against the fact that I never really fit in with Protestantism. I always felt that it was a little hollow. I always thought that it was substantiveless. When you got past the rock band and the people, freaking out at services and all of these like weird things that you've seen with Protestant churches, I never really felt attuned with that. Again, the main thing is it felt to me like there wasn't a ton of substance there. To me, and I said this in the interview, not succinctly, but I'll say it now. The main problem I had with Protestantism and the allure of orthodoxy is that in Protestantism, as I said, it is hollow. When you get past the church stuff, you don't find a lot of substance, and quite frankly, a lot of their arguments don't stand. They don't hold up, and I knew that for a long time. I mean, I used to look for arguments against evolution and the Big Bang, and some of the Protestant arguments against that are okay, but they're not the best. Not the best at all. Whereas Orthodox critiques of it are very, very sound, very, very sound. In fact, their line of argumentation I had never even heard of until I was exposed to it. So that is pretty much that. The first time I went to an Orthodox church, I was nervous. And it was, as I said in the interview, it was like stepping into a new world. I had never been exposed to that type of worship in my life. I had never seen a church like that in my life. The only time I had seen a church like that in my life, and it wasn't in action. It wasn't like live. It was more like a monument, like a historical thing, was when I went to Spain and I visited all these magnificent Catholic churches while being there. And the last thing on that, Kyle asked me, you know what? I'm going to pull it up. So here's a little bit from it. I'm not sure if this is the exact question that I'm referring to, but here's a little bit of it. 100%. He was the one who got me interested in Orthodoxy, without a doubt.
That's awesome. Was there like a specific issue? Like, was it a theological?
So here it is. Here is what I am talking about.
Logical issue, like, sola scriptura or sola fide, or just kind of like, what was it about his apologetic that really?
So there it is. What it was, and Kyle mentioned it, was sola scriptura. I didn't even know what that was before Orthodoxy. And I don't think most Protestants are aware of sola scriptura. Now the pastors are, and some of the higher ups within Protestantism are absolutely aware of it. but I don't think a lot of the congregation is. And I think if they were, and they were exposed to the arguments against sola scriptura, I think a lot of them would not be Protestant anymore. So I'm going to pull up what sola scriptura means, and I'm going to tell you what my critique of it is. So here it is. And you guys, if you're Catholic, or excuse me, well, Catholic, but mainly Orthodox, and you're here because you watched the interview, you guys are all aware of this. But I'm just going to read this real quick. Sola scriptura, scripture alone, is a Christian theological doctrine held by most Protestant Christian denominations, in particular the Lutheran and Reformed traditions of Protestantism, that posits the Bible as the sole infallible source of authority for Christian faith and practice. The Catholic Church considers it heterodox, and generally the Orthodox Church considers it to be contrary to the phenomena of the church. So again, I was not exposed to this at all. Okay. And Kyle also mentioned another aspect of it, which is sola fide, which I may get to. But when you're Protestant, the only thing that you go by is the Bible. And until you hear critiques as to why that is not totally accurate, you wouldn't even know why that's not okay to do that, for lack of a better phrase. And it didn't even dawn on me the countless of examples in which Jesus, the apostles, passed down important Christian doctrines or information through oral and historic tradition, through church tradition. Matter of fact, if you really think about it, that has been the main way up until whenever books were able to be mass produced. Because, by the way, guys, I am not perfect at explaining this. Okay, I'm not. All right, I'll say that bluntly. But if you think about it, before that, and even then for hundreds of years, even when the printing press and all of that were able to mass produce this stuff, most people were not able to read. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure that within Catholicism, which was the dominant religion, they did not want the people to be able to read, because they wanted a select few to be able to hold the information and interpret the information and then give it to the masses. So whether you disagree or agree with that, which I think there's a case to be made about both, but I would lean on the side of allowing people to read it themselves and interpret it themselves with the help of a father, of a bishop, things like that. In other words, it's okay for people to read theological works and the Bible and things like that. I'm okay with that. But that's what it was in the past. The only people who could read were nobles, some of the higher ranking individuals in society. And that has been that way since probably, I would say, the 1700s or the 1600s. So if the Bible is the one and only, and that is the only thing that you can interpret it or use to come up with doctrine to give to the masses, well, then you have to be able to make the case that the Bible was always a thing, and that the Bible was always the only thing that was used to pass down Christian law. And obviously that's not the case. And we see countless of examples, even in the Bible itself. I mean, you can literally use the Bible itself to refute sola scriptura, which wants to have you believe that the Bible is the only source of Christian doctrine. But you can use it itself to refute it. There are countless examples of Jesus sharing orally the things that needed to be shared. I don't know this for sure, but I'm pretty confident that the Bible wasn't even fully written until like 100 or a couple hundred years after the apostles were dead. So, even if you want to say that that was the point in time that it all happened, and, yada, yada, yada. Well, no, because still, even during the lives of Jesus and the apostles up until the end, they were still going off of church tradition and oral passing things down orally. So I answered Kyle's question somewhat. I'll give you guys my answer, or part of the answer. And that is the more fleshed out version of it. I don't want to spend too much time on it because I think I could use a different video separately to do it. But yeah, I would say the main thing would be there's two main things that 2 points that
why two
he made that interest me greatly. Number one would be sola scriptura.
Yeah.
Just because you're Baptist doesn't mean you necessarily know about that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, keep in mind, when I said that, sola scriptura is a pretty deep concept in and of itself. And when you're being interviewed for the first time, it is not necessarily an easy thing to recall that information right off the bat. And as I said, even now, when it's more of a laid back setting and I can kind of just lay it out to you guys, even now, I will be the first to admit that I am not the most, intelligent or sourceful individual on things like this. And I think that's okay to admit. I still have a ton to learn with regards to it. But in this moment, I was struggling to recall sola scriptura, what it was and why it was a reason I was no longer Protestant. And I think that's why, as Orthodox, we should try and have some grace on that front, because I don't think everybody is aware.
Yeah. Most people aren't super into the theology.
Exactly.
Yeah,
they're not into the theology aspect of it.
Yeah.
And the fact is, as far as Baptists and how they view it, it just, to me, it wasn't sound. The other thing would be tradition, church tradition. The reality is. So I'm going to leave it there. Point is, I didn't say it as succinctly as I wanted. Now, the information, what I ended up saying, and it took me way longer than it needed to say it, is what I would have said anyways. And they are. I mean, church tradition is absolutely a valuable piece of or a valuable concept in which to look at it and come up with the correct answer, at least for me as an individual. The other thing that I wish I would have said is that when you get down to the nitty gritty, and Jay Dyer has said this, Protestantism, what does he call it? He calls it Orthodox Catholicism, or he calls it something like that. And basically what he's saying is that in each one of these sects of Protestantism, evangelical, Baptist, Lutheran, Episcopalian, all of these things, okay, you have the Baptist of the church, who is not beholden to anyone, which is something that Protestants critique Catholics for and Orthodox for. Yet their own pastors, it's the same thing. They're not beholden to anybody, which means that they are their own little pope of that church. And they are. They absolutely are. So, which, I would have much more respect for them if they just said, yeah, you know what, you're right. It turns out we actually don't have a problem with that too much, and we're okay with it. However, the reason why they don't do that is because it would force them to basically put all of their eggs in the basket of that pastor and that particular evangelical church. But they know they can't do that because they know a lot of these churches are, as Jay Dyer would say, are nothing more than pop-up tent churches, or hole in the wall churches, or mall churches. That's what he calls it. So, and I don't want to beat up on Protestantism too much, because I think there's a lot of things that they have done well. And I think there's a certain positiveness that comes from their willingness to spread the gospel, and almost at all costs. Um, and they really have done an excellent job doing that overseas, and well, being disciples. I mean, at the college I went to, the literally our church, or not church, college statement was to become a disciple of Christ. And in Protestantism, one of the biggest things that is called of you is to share the word, to be a witness, to bear witness, and things like that. So, but I can't do that because I personally need truth. For me to believe, I need to feel confident in the argumentation, in the critiques of what I believe, uh, and the critiques that are made against whatever I was, so that I feel confident in the position that I'm currently in. And I do now. I have never felt more confident than I do now, in that it is the correct way of doing things, to have church tradition, to pay respect to the history of the church. That oral tradition is very important. The Bible is important as well, but oral tradition is also very important, church tradition, and things like that. So I've never been more confident, than I am now in where I am at. And, I never felt this confident as a Protestant, because I always knew in the back of my mind that there were things, that there were holes there. I would be in Sunday school and I would always ask questions that rarely had a succinct, legitimate answer. Now, it could have been that I was being stubborn, but it is what it is. All right, moving along here. I don't know if I'll be able to find this. Actually, you know what? I think it's on my channel. Let me pause this and pull up my channel. This is the other thing that I want to flesh out. So here we go. So Kyle asked me about idols. I thought he was going to segue it into asking about sports, pornography, video games, and things like that in and of itself. But he ends the question asking about marriage, okay, which I will answer. That is the biggest thing that I want to answer, is my answer on marriage, and the current state of the way things are. And I got to be honest, and I've said this to Kyle, I don't really see how you could see it any other way, quite frankly. Where I paused this is so funny. Anyways, but that's a different situation for a different day, to discuss. But so on the idol things, and I wish I had said this when it came to the positives of being Orthodox, is I would have never thought about how childish and how almost worship-like sports or professional sports can be, especially for most men in Western society. England, tons of English men use all of their masculinity to support pointless soccer teams, that most of the time spit in the very beliefs that we hold dear. Same thing in America. And it is cult-like, and it is worship-like. I mean, a lot of these men out here absolutely pay more attention to sports than they do anything that actually holds relevance in their lives. Now, part of the reason they do it is because there is such few opportunities or space for them to basically live out their masculinity. And one of the ways that they can is through sports. And I feel bad that that's the case. I really, really do. Up until modernity, and I would say like modernity, like right now, since the 80s, there has never been a time period where men had such few outlets to get out their physical prowess and masculinity than what we have now. We have such few arenas in which to do that. unless you are a top tier athlete, there's nothing that you can do to basically get that masculine, to live out that masculinity in a positive way. I mean, if you really think about it, almost all forms of what men do and their masculinity is punished by law in a lot of regards. And it's not to say that some of those things aren't justly punishable by law, but again, you look back at other societies. I mean, the physical work that men did is it is resoundingly more than any or most men do nowadays. Okay. You're lucky to be able to get that a little bit of that masculinity out by just going to the gym 1 hour a day. Okay. And even then it's a pale comparison to what other men have been able to do. So that's that. Okay. And I do have another channel that is sports related that does quite well. Has over 1,000 subscribers, but I am starting to rethink whether that is a good idea to continue with, because I am starting to think that supporting teams is childish, and I think it is a way to keep us men passive. And Kyle, what was the word Kyle used? I can't remember what word he used, but it was a good word. But we'll say passive for now. It's a way to keep men at bay. Gosh, I wish I could remember. Not serenade. Anyways, so that's that. All right. The main thing that I want to answer is marriage and my thoughts on marriage. Okay. Here it is. And I fully realize that my opinion is probably somewhat dictated by my experience. Now, I've never been divorced. I've never been married myself. Okay. But I have seen others who have been. I believe that God does call us to get married, and God does call us to be fathers and to be husbands. Not all, because if that was the case, then priests and things like that, it wouldn't be acceptable for them not to be married, but some of them are. Basically, there's two options, and Nick Fuentes has mentioned this in the past. Either you can go get married and do it that way in the confines and have sex in the confines of marriage and be a father and be a husband, or you can abstain from it together. Either or is acceptable. And I tend to agree with that. Now, I don't think that most people can do the latter, which is to totally abstain from it altogether. I think most people, that is totally incompatible with them. Now, let's move this forward to the nitty gritty. I think the West, and I wish I was way more succinct at saying this in the interview. I think the West is almost totally and entirely against men. I think the laws, I think the actual culture at large despises men, especially white men, more specifically, straight white men, and has zero respect for what they have done to build this phenomenal society that we live in right now. They have utter contempt for them. And now, where does that come from? Well, that comes from feminism. And when you really think about it, feminism is probably one of the dominant frameworks in the West, which means that you will be hard pressed to find a woman to marry that does not or has not heard any of the and totally been brainwashed with the ideas of feminism. So what does that mean? Okay, let's just keep taking this down. Well, that means that it's likely you'll marry somebody who has been taught that men are terrible, and that women can do it on their own, that they can be independent, that they don't need a man. And you see it all the time when you watch these videos of young girls. I mean, they literally spit out the exact same things that I would expect to hear in 90% of the classes at University of Texas or whatever major public institution. Okay. And so, okay, so what does that mean? Well, that means, as me as a YouTuber, should I promote guys um to marry uh some of these ladies that have utter contempt for men? I'm not sure that is an acceptable situation. I'm not sure that is. Um, I'm not sure that wouldn't be a sin for me to do so. In other words, I'm not sure it wouldn't be a sin for me to advise men to get married with the understanding that I just laid out. Okay. And I said this in the interview, just to sum it up in a perfect phrase. Um, Women, modern women in the West, don't know how to be mothers, and they don't know how to be wives because they have never been taught to do so. And so basically, you will be stepping into something that you are almost guaranteed to fail. Now, there are people like, uh, there are people, especially some of the more religious men out there who believe, well, as long as I find a traditional, um, you know, traditional, more conservative woman, it'll be fine. And my answer to that is, and I just did a video regarding this with Tommy Loren, is no, it's just a smokescreen, and you will be hard pressed to find that. And if you are trying to find that type of woman, then you're going up against the top 10% of men who are trying to go to find the same thing. Okay. Because believe me, they're smart enough to know that that's what they should look for as well. So the probability of you even even if that is what you're looking for, and you agree with what I said before that, and you believe, okay, well, therefore I need to find a traditional woman, then you also need to realize that you're going to be going up against some of the more higher tier men for that type of woman as well. Now, I would also take it a step further and say, well, it's not just that, but even those traditional women that are born in America or the West are still underlying feminists, and they have a little bit of feminist in them as well. So you cannot, because you got to understand, our society is so riddled with feminism that it is impossible for any of these women to escape it. So they are just totally screwed. They're totally screwed. They really are. Now, the other thing is the statistics. Okay, marriage ends. The divorce rate in America is 50% to 60. It's closer to 60 in my opinion, but we'll just say 50%. That's the dominant percentage that people give. I think it's closer to 60%, but let's just say 50. Okay. Again. So I'm supposed to tell a guy to enter into something that it has a close to 60% failure rate? That's like me, that's like me saying to some of these SJWs out there that, yeah, you're totally hoping for a unicorn, but you're justified in doing so, and just go for it. Yeah, go for it. You might shoot up meth, or you could shoot up meth, and you have a 10% of not ODing. But yeah, just go ahead. You never know. You might be the 10%. And that's why I gave the metaphor of, it would be like telling them to go into a burning building with 40% survival rate, and hoping to come out unburned. It's just, it's, I think it would be bad of me to say so. So there is that as well. And it really is tough, because I wish it wasn't so. I wish it wasn't. I wish that it was. Now, one more thing is, and I mentioned this at the beginning of my answer, the laws that are against men are so against men that I think on a certain level, and this is why I said I think on a certain level it would be sinful for me to tell a fellow man to enter into a contract like that, where given there's a let's say 50% chance that they will get divorced, they're going to lose all their stuff, all their money. They're going to have to pay alimony. They are going to lose their kids for no other reason. I mean, they were a good dad, they were a good guy, but because society right now in the West is totally tilted towards women, they're going to, at best, they're going to be able to see their kid half the time, when it's totally silly that that's the case anyways. So I just don't see the opening for me to suggest that marriage is the best thing. I do think that the only way to save America, or not the only way, but one of the ways to save America, would be for marriage to become acceptable again, and things like that. But guys, it's not going to happen anytime soon. The government is totally in control of marriage, whether you're Orthodox, whether you're Catholic, whether you're Protestant, it doesn't matter. They are totally in control of marriage. The culture at large does not advocate for actual legitimate marriage. It doesn't. And one more point is, a lot of these guys or people who think that marriage is the way to go, it's like, you're not going to find a traditional woman. That doesn't even exist anymore. It doesn't. And basically, you're entering into a contract where women expect you to be a traditional man, to be a provider and things like that, but they're not a traditional woman, and they're not expected to be so. And I think that that's terribly unfair. I really, really do. And again, do I think that it would help America if people started getting married again? Sure, of course. But folks, we are so far away from that. We are so removed from that. It is so ingrained. This tumor is so entrenched in society. Feminism and culture's pushing of the idea of marriage at large as well, and then the government's whole situation on it. It is such a big tumor that you would have to address all of those issues first before actually being able to say, before being able to have a legitimate discussion about whether you should advise somebody to get married or not, especially men. I'm serious. And I know Kyle disagrees with this. I know that firsthand. But I think that it is almost a pipe dream to see it any other way than how I see it now. And you could say, well, the way you see it is defeatist. It is a sad way of looking at it. And maybe it is. But I would prefer to say that I look at it in its most realistic, unemotional manner possible. And do you understand how hard it is for me to come to this conclusion as a religious man, as a nearly fully Orthodox man? This is not easy for me to say this. It's not. And so, that's that. I think that the laws are against men. I think that men are highly likely to get totally screwed, to lose all their money, to lose their kids, for no other reason than it is promoted in today's day and age for a woman to get divorced and to become an independent woman through divorce. So, and are the statistics better when it comes to, people who are within the Orthodox faith or within the Catholic faith, or who are Protestants? I don't know. Maybe they are. And I should probably look into that. But I would guess that they're not much better, quite frankly. I don't think they're much better because we're still in the West. So anyways, That is, my back is killing me. I got to get going. That is the fleshed out version of my interview with Kyle on the OrthoCast. It was a blast. I really like what he's doing, and I really do pray that he's successful. He's a good guy. And we'll see what happens with that. Either way, I appreciate that he had me on. And the last thing I want to say is a couple things. One, I need to stop saying so much. When I watched the interview, I said like 1,000 times. It's always good to um, occasionally watch yourself so that you can see how you really are, and perhaps if there's things that you can work on. As I said in the interview, I am very big into men improving themselves, becoming better, and becoming masculine men, very strong men. I think that is the only path forward for America and Western civilization. I think that is a better path forward than telling people that they should get married. I think it's a way better path forward to promote men to be men again and be strong men rather than marriage. I fully realize that there are going to be people that disagree with me. And that is what I was going to say. I wish I didn't say 1,000 times. I wish I was more succinct in the interview, but by and large, I think the interview went great. And that's why I said so much, is because I didn't want to offend Kyle's audience. I didn't want to come off a certain way. But I again, not that I lied. As you guys can see, everything I said in this is exactly what I said in the interview, just more fleshed out and more detailed. But I think it's better to just be totally direct and totally blunt about your answer and your thoughts. So I hope me and Kyle are able to do this again. I really think we could do an excellent two-man show on current topics, current current topics, politics, religion, debates, things like that. Ultimately, I'm not sure if I would have time for that, and I don't know what Kyle's goal is for the future. But either way, like I said, I'm very appreciative, and I think it was a resounding success. Either way, you can't beat two young men getting together and showing confidence and perseverance and dedication and hard work and believing in themselves. I don't. Either way, I think that it's good to show that and show that it's okay to, as a young man, to push forward and to be a warrior and really dictate your own life. All right, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to hit the subscribe, like, comment, share. You know the drill. And last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy willow. And facts or feelings, because your feelings don't matter. Love you guys. See you guys next time. Peace.